Got a little project in the works today. This will be a raised panel keepsake box with splined miters. I'm building the box out of cherry, and the splines will be walnut. It's going to be roughly 7.5 by 9 by 3.5 inches tall. My stock is roughly 1 inch thick. I've got to resaw it in half, so I've got my auxiliary fence clamped on and shimmed square. The blade set dead center. Got to plane these boards I just resawed to get them to the same thickness and smooth. No matter how carefully set up the bandsaw, boards still never come out exactly the same when I'm resawing. I've got an auxiliary table clamped to my main table, so I can plane boards that are thinner than the planer could normally handle. Got to hit these boards a few passes on the joiner to get rid of the planer snipe on the ends. This one only has snipe on one side, this one has it on both sides. So these will be the sides of my box. This will be the bottom portion. This portion is going to be the lid. In order to keep from losing too much grain, I'm going to rip these on the bandsaw so I can make a really narrow cut, and then I will clean up the bandsaw marks by taking a really narrow shave on the table saw. I marked my pieces so I don't get them mixed up. I've got my blade set to take just the tiniest shave off of this cut edge to get rid of bandsaw tooth marks. When I'm running thin, narrow, lightweight pieces of wood like this through my saw, I can't fully open the blast gate to this dust hood. It just provides too much vacuum and wants to pull the pieces up off the table. I've just barely got it cracked, but still I like to have it down so it covers the blade and I don't nick my little fingers. Well, I guess I should turn the dust collector on. So one of these thin boards has a slight bow to it. When I was taking the initial shave, it was lifting a little bit at the end and leaving a blade mark on it. So I wound up having to take more shaves off of it than I was planning. I set up a feather board behind the blade to help keep it from twisting, since I don't have a riving knife on here to keep it against the fence. I don't think I've ever run a feather board behind the blade, but I set it up dead in line with the inside edge of the blade, so whatever the board thickness was when it came out, it would be this, it would be against the feather board. It'd be the same distance between the feather board and the fence as the edge of the blade is to the fence. At any rate, all the cuts came out good and smooth, so the pieces should fit together nice and tight, make a good pleasing joint between the lid and the bottom of the box. Even with the extra shaves, I still didn't take off very much of the grain, so it continues from top to bottom pretty well and looks decent. Alright, now I've got to tape these pieces back together and cut some miters. So I've got my boards taped back together. The ones I just ripped down on the bandsaw so I can make the miter cuts at the same time where they'll line up. Got my router table set up with a slot cutter so I can cut slots for the top and bottom panels in side pieces. I did a test cut in this block using this piece as a template. So that's how the top of the lid and the side will fit. I can leave the height of the slot cutter the same for the bottom because I'm going to flip the panel over, and that'll give me some clearance between the bottom of the panel and the bottom edge of the box. I won't be doing raised panel on the bottom, of course, just on the top. So these pieces will be my top and bottom panels. And for anybody who's wondering how I size those, I determine the size of the side pieces first. I go ahead and get them cut, get the slot in place, and then I measure from the very corner of where the slot ends on each end. So this one is 6 7/8. And then on these small boxes I'll subtract a 1/16 of an inch to give a little bit of room for wood movement. So I do the same thing on both pieces, the side pieces and the front pieces, or front and back pieces. I always leave the top and bottom panels oversized until I get the box cut to final size. That way I don't come out too big, or even worse, too small on my panels. Okay, I'm getting ready to make the raised panel. Got a core box bit loaded. I did a test cut to make sure I had the height right and the fence set in the right place. So I'm cut on my dust collector and get rolling. I'm burning some artwork on the box lid. Got a little excited and started the laser before I thought about setting up the camera, but that's cool. It worked out just fine. This is about a 20-minute burn, so I'm not going to bother showing the whole thing. My plan is to glue the bottom portion of the box together, and then after it's set for a while, I'm going to align the top portion on the bottom and glue it up using the bottom part as a guide to make sure everything fits. Alright, that's as close to perfect as perfect can get. I'm going to let that set for a little while, and then I'll work on getting the lid glued up. Box has been in the clamps for about half an hour. Get these off and see about gluing up this lid. Alright, I got my clamp raised up where I need it. This should make life a little more simple, or at least make the glue a little more simple. I'm going to leave that in the clamps for a while, probably leave it overnight before I do anything else to it. I guess tomorrow I will be cutting the splines and the spline slots. The glue up turned out good. I'm getting ready to cut the slots for the splines. I got my blade height set, the box clamped securely in place. I added a second clamp up higher so it would hold the box more securely. The bottom one will be good for shorter stuff, but with it being this tall, it needed something else up toward the middle to keep it from wobbling. Alright, I'm going to fire this up and see what happens. Got my fence set at 1/2 inch. I'm going to rip down some strips that I'll cut for splines. This is walnut. Stick. Okay, I'm getting ready to cut some little triangular pieces that I'll use for splines. I know most guys just cut them rectangular, but I don't have a whole lot of material to work with, so I don't want to waste any more than I have to. Got the splines on the ends sanded pretty much flush. Now I'm going to work on the sides, the front and the back. Got all the splines sanded flush, looking good. The lid is sitting nice and flat on the box. Now I've got to work on mortising for these hinges. I've never used this particular style of hinge, so I don't have a jig set up to do the mortises. So that's what I'm getting ready to build. Did some test cuts and got the hinges in, looking good. My mortises are slightly too deep, so the pieces won't close together all the way, but I have adjusted that for the final box. Got the liner pieces cut. Need to get them glued into place. I've got some thin pieces of board I'm going to use for spacers to hold them up off the bottom just a little bit, because I'm going to line this with red crushed velvet, and I want to be able to tuck it underneath the liner pieces. Now I just need to be sure to put the glue on the correct side so the grain will wrap. Don't need a whole lot of glue, just enough to hold it in place. Yeah, I think that'll work. We'll see. Alright, we'll let that dry for a few minutes, and then I'm going to work on getting a coat of tongue oil on the outside, probably the inside too. Glue's been setting for a while. The liner seems stuck. I rounded these edges over with a piece of sandpaper, just did it by hand to help the lid clear. I may need to round it over some more, I'm not sure. It's going to, the lid's actually going to close. Maybe dragging on this piece, but we'll see in just a minute. I'm going to get the screws in the hinges. Maybe. All right, now for the moment of truth. Let it close. Ha! Yeah. Nice. I can't believe it. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I gave it a light sanding. And apparently dusted everything except for the bottom. Oh, there's something I missed. I was rounding over all the edges and I missed the bottom. I'm going to do it much more round over, just enough to keep from having any splinters. Alright, looks pretty good. Now, I don't know if I showed, but I got the bottom masked off. I don't want the tongue oil to get on there where I'll be putting the spray adhesive. Adhesive may or may not stick to it. But why chance it? And yes, I'm using an artist brush to do the whole thing. Got a coat on the inside and all the rest of the box, all sides and the bottom. I'm getting ready to do the top. For buffing off the excess tunnel oil, I've tried lint-free cloths, cheesecloth, all sorts of rags, and nothing works as well as just a plain old Bounty paper towel. They leave behind much less lint than anything else I've used. So I've given up all the rest of the stuff and just using the paper towels. We'll let this cure overnight and put a second coat on tomorrow. And then I'll just have to attach the latch, put on some fuzzy feet, and install the crushed velvet. Got the spray adhesive on the back of the red crushed velvet. Oh, there we go. Now, ha! Alright, so now got to install a latch. This is the latch I'll be using. I've got this piece of blue tape here indicating center on the box. Alright, let's see what we got. Alright, not so bad. Alright, gonna install the fuzzy feet and I'm going to call this one done.